But I'm fighting for real people, for you and for your families. I'm fighting for people like Sue and Judith, who bravely shared their stories at yesterday's hearing. I'm fighting for people like Shahira from Sacramento, whose mother relies on Social Security to live independently. Cuts would be catastrophic for her entire family, who would have to pick up the financial burdens of her mother while trying to build lives of their own.
We have to not just say what we're against, we have to say and be very clear that we stand up for poor and working people across this country. We believe in raising the minimum wage. We want to provide housing for everyone. We want to provide childcare for everyone. We believe that the wealthy should pay their fair share so that we have the revenue to do the things that we need to do.
When the VA is threatening to cut 80,000 of the mission-driven staff who serve veterans each day, when Veterans Crisis Line operators say DOGE has made their job stressful to the point of tears, being forced to do more with less while remaining steadfast in their mission of serving veterans in crisis.
He didn't talk about democracy. He didn't talk about human rights. He talked about stability. We want stability. Well, of course we want stability, but stability is always the priority of authoritarian leaders. Stability is the priority of dictators. And what has set America apart is that we have also been full-throated in our support for democracy and human rights.
El 28 de julio lo demostró. Cuando la gente pierde el miedo, el régimen pierde el control. Si estuviste el 28 de julio, si te lo robaron, ven, porque cuando el pueblo se une es invencible. Nos han quitado mucho, pero nadie nos puede quitar el poder de volver a ser Venezuela.
The only way that you destroy a democracy, the only way that you turn over the treasury to the billionaires, the only way that you rig the rules so that only people like Elon Musk can prosper is by destroying our ability to stand up and dissent. But let me tell you, everywhere we go, all around the country, there is not a single open chair.
And now he is telling us that he is going to leave the federal government in just a few weeks to expand his data and AI operations, as he announced last week that his own AI company, of which a number of the executives are actively operating inside the federal government with DOGE right now. It raises a lot of questions, doesn't it? And that is why every single day my constituents and Americans across this country are asking us, what are they doing with our data?
Let's just focus on these two Republican-appointed judges so we can just remove all the allegations of partisan bias.
So we're removing the other 90.
So let's focus first on Judge Boasberg's case, which is the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 law that very specifically applies during wartime or if the country is subject to an invasion. Now, you would agree, I assume, as a former Speaker of the House, that it is Congress's duty to declare war.
I think there's also a provision of that act which does say for invasion, and I think the average American will tell you they feel that we've been invaded by the policies of the Biden.
So the average, so are we now supposed to say that your assessment of the average American's view determines whether or not we are under invasion by Venezuela? So that's what we're supposed to do. Now, is it, if not the average American, what your testimony is here today is that Donald Trump, because he was elected president, alone should determine whether or not that law applies without any due process. Is that your testimony?
No, my position is that the Supreme Court should have the opportunity in a nationwide issue to render, but remember.
Okay, so let me reclaim my time. So basically what you're saying then is the problem here is that Judge Boasberg pre-certified a class because, of course, it is the exact same legal question for every single person who was removed to El Salvador. And what really should happen is that every single one of those people should have to file their own lawsuits. And each district, then judge should rule on it. That's because that's the difference, the opposite of a nationwide injunction, right?
Actually, as I've said several times in the last 3 hours, there can be a provision by which the Supreme Court takes up that injunction.
So which is it? Do
it.
you oppose nationwide injunctions as a judicial coup d'etat?
No.
Or do you think nationwide injunctions are appropriate in certain circumstances but should have expedited appeal?
I believe that nationwide injunctions by an individual judge is far too much power.
Well, I do think Pennsylvania can do a lot better. We're good or pretty good in some cases, and we could be great. Sometimes I say we're a stock where if we were a stock, we'd be at 20, we should be at 60, we can go over 100. And I fully mean that. And I don't like the fact that Florida, Texas, Utah, Georgia, Tennessee, the Carolinas, even Indiana are always in the top 10 in rankings as far as where to start a business and where to grow a business, and even education. For crying out loud, under Wolf and Shapiro, we went from, I think, number 9 and number 10 in K-12 education to now some surveys show as low as 36, 37. So we can do a heck of a lot better. We can be a leader among states, and we can be the best place to live. And I really believe that governor's office can make the difference. So therefore, yeah, Dom, I'm very much considering it.
15 district court judges have effectively seized control of the Trump administration and the American people's agenda through the issuance of nationwide injunctions. These injunctions are currently restricting President Trump's ability to better secure the border, to protect children from chemical and surgical mutilation, reduce the size and scope of the federal government, and more. District court issuance of nationwide injunctions, which operate to impose such decisions on everyone in the country rather than just the litigants who filed suit, is a relatively recent phenomenon in American history and one of serious, questionable authority for any court other than the United States Supreme Court.
Is discussing the kinds of matters that were discussed on Signal preserving the element of surprise?
Senator, I don't want to, given the fact that the chairman and ranking member have been asked for an investigation, I don't want to comment on the particulars. I do want to stay at the strategic altitude and say that we should always preserve the element of surprise.
I think it was a very simple question, whether or not talking about the things that have been reported, whether that preserved the element of surprise. I would say that if you're truly speaking truth to power, that the answer would obviously be no, it does not preserve the element of surprise. That is why we need to have an inquiry.
And what President Trump is doing is reversing the policies of people like Mike Pence, who sold this country out, that over decades gutted our industrial sector, shipped our jobs overseas. Cities like Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton, Toledo, Youngstown, these were thriving cities that produced a lot of goods.
The president brought up and he stated how this is going to be very important for American auto manufacturers. Look, we have been treated unfairly, okay? Free trade has become synonymous with unfair trade, and President Trump is recognizing that. It's easy to recognize, particularly when you see the chart that he brought up and seeing the disparities. And you know what? By creating a fair playing field and a more level playing field when it comes to trade levels, so-called tariff levels, the United States is already a very expensive place to do business.
The price of goods has been a huge concern for the public. What's going to happen when we can't afford materials to build new homes, or when the cost of actually building these homes dramatically goes up? That will have an impact on the housing market. We know we're already hearing from people that need cheap steel, that need access to metals to produce a variety of things. Those prices are going to go up.